You survived.
I did, and so did you.
Oh, barely.
How was the trip home?
Fast. Rich Criscunis has a lead foot.
Leadfoot Criscunis.
And he is an excellent conversational companion.
Aren't we doing trifles?
That too. Support for I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere comes from MX Publishing, with the largest catalog of new Sherlock Holmes books in the world. New novels, biographies, graphic novels, and short story collections about Sherlock Holmes. Find them at mxpublishing.com.
And listeners like you who support us on Patreon or Substack, sign up for exclusive benefits at patreon.com/ihearofsherlock or ihearofsherlock.substack.com.
I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, episode 310, White Smoke.
I hear of Sherlock everywhere since you became astronomer.
In a world where it's always 1895, it's I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, a podcast for devotees of Mr. Sherlock Holmes, the world's first unofficial consulting detective.
I've heard of you before. You're Holmes the meddler, Holmes the busybody, Holmes the Scotland Yard Jack in office.
The game's afoot as we interview authors, editors, creators, and other prominent Sherlockians on various aspects of the great detective in popular culture.
As we go to press, sensational developments have been reported.
So join your hosts, Scott Monty and Burt Wolder, as they talk about what's new in the world of Sherlock Holmes.
You couldn't have come at a better time!
I'm Bill Curtis. This is I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere. Now, here are your hosts, Scott Monty and Burt Wolder.
Well, thank you, Bill Curtis, and welcome to I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, the first podcast for Sherlock Holmes devotees where it's always 1895. I'm Scott Monty.
And I'm Burt Wolder, and Bill Curtis just passed me a note. He says he needs a raise.
I will double his salary. How's that?
Oh, good.
Oh, well, we are here to celebrate the white smoke coming out of the Canonical Conclave. I thought we had promised people purple, gray, and blue smoke. The BSI colors, is that? No.
I like that. That's great. So it's how tobacco smoke aged over time. Yeah. That's perfect.
Just like the dressing gown.
Yeah.
Incidentally, folks, if you would like to hear us discuss the dressing gown of many colors, we do have a Trifles episode related to that. We'll put a link to it in the show notes, just so you don't miss it, to understand why Sherlock Holmes had a dressing gown that at different times was purple and blue and mouse gray. But we're not here to discuss dressing gowns. We're here to discuss really what we talked about with Steve Doyle in episode 308, just 2 episodes ago, the Canonical Conclave, the Midwest Canonical Conclave. We just attended. We're just back from it. And we have thoughts. We have lots of thoughts, and we thought we would share them with you today in this episode. So sadly, you're not going to get the benefit of an interview, but you will. Is it the benefit of having us talk with each other? Is that a benefit?
Tell me, Scott, how did you first meet Sherlock Holmes?
We've done this. We've done this before.
Yeah.
But you're stuck with us this whole episode. Well, of course, we also have the Learned Societies, where we'll update you on goings-on in the world of Sherlockian societies. And we have Madeline Quinones. She's returned with her piece on A Chance of Listening, looking at a Sherlockian podcast. And, of course, we have the Canonical Couplet, where we give you a chance to try to guess which Sherlock Holmes story we're talking about based on 2 lines of poetry. We'll also have the results from the last episode with a Sherlockian prize to give away. So stay tuned for that. Meantime, if you'd like to support the show, there are all kinds of ways of doing that. You can do it through through Patreon or Substack. Just go to patreon.com/ihearofsherlock or ihearofsherlock.substack.com. You can choose either a yearly donation or a monthly recurring donation. It's up to you, whichever one you choose, and whichever platform works for you. We do have certain thank you gifts at certain levels over on Patreon, so I think you'll want to check that out. Those are all available in the show notes. And don't forget to leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Whether you listen to us on those platforms or not, it would be helpful to have your voice in there telling other people what you think of the show. So we thank you in advance. Oh, that stately music means it's time for the learned societies. Yes, we're looking at Sherlockian activity out there in the world, and it obviously relates to what we're going to be talking about today at the Canonical Conclave, because all activities are local. All Sherlock is local. It's important to participate at the local level or even at a virtual level, of which there are many to choose from. So let's get into the month of June, Burt.
Yeah, let's get into the month of June.
June 1st.
Okay, June 1st. So how are we going to do this?
If you'd like to join Steve Mason and the crew of the Bark Lone Star, they are having a virtual meeting on June 1st. You can check that out at the DFW Sherlock website. And again, we'll have a link to the Sherlockian calendar where you can go and specifically follow up on all of these. We're not going to give URLs for all of them, but it is available in the Sherlockiancalendar.com website.
Yes.
How about local to you on June 4th?
Oh, June 4th in beautiful New York City. Another Ash Wednesday dinner, and the contact there is Shana Carter.
Yeah, that's worthwhile. Ash Wednesday is always fun.
And also on the 4th, there's a virtual meeting, the Transfixed Correspondence of Phoenix. And the contact there is Lauren Cerconi.
Nice. And our friends up in Montreal, Quebec, the Bimetallic Question, they're having an in-person meeting on June the 5th. Edith Poundon is your contact up there.
And not to be outdone, on the 7th of June in Toronto, Ontario, the Bootmakers of Toronto are having a pub event. Contact there is Thelma Beam.
Ooh, I wonder if they have those glass boots that you can drink out of at a pub event. That would be a lot of fun.
Now, when you come in, do you have to say your shoe size, I suppose, and they give you?
Oh, the big-footed people have an advantage to drinking in those kinds of events.
Yeah.
Well, you can make your way down to Bethesda, Maryland for the Red Circle of Washington, D.C. They're having their luncheon meeting on June the 7th as well. So if you can't be in Toronto, you could be down in the D.C. area.
And then off to Dayton, Ohio the next day. The Agra Treasurer is having a luncheon meeting, and Kindle Potts is the contact there.
Excellent. And Anna Behrens is running the Monadnock Sherlockians. They're having a meeting in Keene, New Hampshire on June 8th.
And Cincinnati, Ohio, June 13, the Tankerville Club is having a dinner meeting, and Dan Andriaco, editor of the Baker Street Journal, is the contact for that.
Superb. And in Poughkeepsie, New York on June 13th, same evening, the Hudson Valley Scientists, not scientists, scientists, is having a dinner meeting. Our friend Lou Lewis is the contact there.
And then New York City, beautiful New York City. On Saturday, June 14, the Priory Scholars are having their luncheon meeting, and Chris Zordan is the contact there.
And rounding it out on the 14th of June, if you don't feel like leaving the house, perfect. The Sespudlians of London, Ontario are having their virtual meeting. And you can check out what Jan Sespudlians have to say at their website. Well, that'll wrap it up for the first half of June in the Sherlockian calendar. We'll be back again in the next episode with the second half of the month. For those of you who have been around here long enough, you know that the MX book of new Sherlock Holmes stories has been going on for nearly a decade, and it is now rounding out its final series with volumes 48 through 52, edited by David Markham. One of the hallmarks of the MX book of new Sherlock Holmes stories has been its constant support of Undershaw, the home of Arthur Conan Doyle for a number of years. And Undershaw, as well as being transformed into a school for children with special needs, has been the object of support by MX Publishing. The proceeds of the book collection have gone to Undershaw. We're talking over $100,000 over the last decade. And on May 17th, 2025, you can enjoy an evening with Sherlock Holmes, a virtual event that's a live stream directly from Undershaw in celebration of this 10-year anniversary and final publication date of the stories. Just go to mxpublishing.com to get your copy of the final 4 volumes in this series and to sign up through Eventbrite to attend the event. Find out all about it at mxpublishing.com. Okay, Burt, we promised to regale people with tales of the Canonical Conclave, the inaugural Canonical Conclave, Midwest flavor, that was held in Indianapolis, Indiana on Saturday, April 26th, 2025. You got there a little before I did, so what did you observe? What did you see when you arrived on Friday?
On Friday, well, what did I see? I saw friends and people that I knew. We had an opportunity for some of us to get together for a little social activity Friday afternoon, and then joined Bob Scharfman for a terrific dinner on Friday night. And then, thanks to the serendipity of all of this and just bumping into people that you know and connect with, our pal Michael Barton from Massachusetts had gotten in early, and he texted me on Saturday to tell me about a book fair in downtown Indianapolis, which we visited. And amazingly enough, there was a member of the BSI there who's also a bookseller that we had an opportunity to say hello to, and then went off to the Kurt Vonnegut Museum. I did not know that there was a Kurt Vonnegut Museum in Indianapolis, but we visited that. And that put us in a fine frame of mind for the conclave, which began at 1:30 in the afternoon. And friends, you folks who are not members of the Baker Street Irregulars may say to yourself, or even us, what do I care about all this? I mean, how interesting the Baker Street Irregulars does this, that, and the other thing. Well, the fact is that you don't need to be a member of the Baker Street Irregulars to be a member of any of these scion societies. And it really is, this event was not really about the Baker Street Irregulars as an organization. It's really about the lifeblood of Sherlockian interest as a local hobby with people. And that was sort of the departure point for this conference, as we discussed it with Steve on our previous iHose episode, which you mentioned.
Yeah, and I wasn't. I mean, we obviously all heard the same things from Steve, and it sounded like, okay, well, this is going to be interesting. But I was really blown away by this event. Just the concept of the event, and then the energy that I felt from every single person who was there. I don't think there was one participant who was there begrudgingly, who was there as a non-full participant. Everybody seemed to be active and activated to participate in this together. And it really felt like there was some positive forward movement that was coming out of this event as a result.
Oh, I very much agree. Yeah, this is an event, I think, that attracted people like moths get lured to the flame, into the light. It was really magnetic, and I think you're right. You had that spirit in the group. And of course, we were there in Indianapolis with the illustrious clients and Steve Doyle. And I think by any measure, the illustrious clients must be the most active and successful and largest of the Scion societies in terms of their activities and active membership and so on. And it really, just the fact that we're with the illustrious clients sort of shows you that Sherlockian life is really all about being local, but it's about what happens. It's not at an annual dinner or by buying a book, but through friends and discussion and people getting together on a regular basis to do something together that they all enjoy individually.
Yeah, and I think the illustrious clients in particular have a good formula, and it's taken them many years to kind of perfect this, and they've done it through iteration. But part of the magic there is that they encourage participation. Not only do they try and get different people to present papers or give toasts, but they encourage them to sign up, and they actually reach out to people and ask them. Because sometimes people are just waiting to be asked. They don't want to volunteer on their own, but if they're asked, they are more than happy to participate. And I think that's a secret formula that will work at any locality. People are all the same across the Sherlockian universe. And I know a lot of us are introverts. We'd prefer to kind of sit in a corner and read or, contemplate things on our own. But when we come together, we're social creatures. And we all have something unique and different to say about these stories and about how they affected us. And the illustrious clients has just done a wonderful job in bringing the best out in their people.
Yeah, that's really very well said. And I think that if you want to make a list of the lessons of the day, and we can talk more about this later, I think one of the big takeaways is ask. Ask. I mean, if you are part of a local group and you think there's more that can be done to bring new people in and to be a little bit more active, reach out. And that I think was one of Steve's messages. One of the things, we had an opportunity to do at the conclave was to meet all of these people from different science societies. And a great thing to do if you're, you want to be a little more active and do something different is call somebody up and invite them to be a speaker or tell them, I'd like you to come to my meeting. Or get in touch with one of those societies and say, I'd like to come to your next meeting. And I think, that kind of direction and attitude is, a big part of what we would all like the future of this hobby to be.
Yeah. And I have to say that I was honored to be asked by two different scions there to go speak at their events. And, we're working out dates and everything that are going to work out, but that was a great honor. And I will also say that at the same time, Burt, I identified at least 7 scions that, I should say I begged 7 scions to take you off of my hands for a time.
Thank you.
So we'll see how that works out.
Oh, yeah, I'm waiting. I just can't wait to get the invitation. No, I'd be happy. Absolutely. I'd be happy to come and talk anywhere.
Yeah, and we're cheap. We work for food. So, it's, and first-class accommodations.
Speaking of first-class accommodations,
yes.
The setting for the conclave,
yes, the
Woodstock Country Club, has got to be the most elegant and spacious and welcoming environment that the irregulars that Sherlock Holmes hobbyists have ever met in. Certainly one of the top ones. And a beautiful job was done to bring it more into the Victorian era. Aspects of the Baker Street sitting room were reproduced. a table set for tea with appropriate newspapers, the mantelpiece in Baker Street reproduced, other artifacts from Holmes and Watson's environment, tastefully put around. Even if they even found a way to replicate without damaging the walls the VR bullet pox, the Reichenbach portrait on the wall. Those were all there to look at in the rooms outside of the conclave, which was set up in a ballroom with round tables. Beautiful.
It was really well done. I mean, Sherlock Holmes's violin, Persian slipper, even and this was really thoughtfully done. The mantle itself was marble, so you could not transfix a jackknife through it to hold the correspondence. So Anne Lewis told me that she created a prop with styrofoam in between the correspondence and then transfixed the knife through that and set it on the mantelpiece so it looked convincing. Yeah. There was even a cardboard box filled with salt and a couple of severed ears. I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah. You had to listen with the other ear. That's why.
Oh, wow.
But we will have photos of these artifacts from that Baker Street scene available to our subscribers. So if you're not a part of Patreon or Substack, check it out. We'll have photos there available to you. We'll have a limited set of photos available to all of our listeners, but we'll have a full set available to our subscribers. And I don't know if you saw, we were greeted at the check-in line, at the registration line, by Sherlock Holmes himself.
Yes. Yeah, he was there looking a little two-dimensional, but he was there.
It was like Flat Stanley. It was a flat Sherlock. Yeah, a life-size cutout of Sherlock Holmes. I didn't recognize which Holmes that was. Did you?
I think it was an actor. It was a model. I don't think it was from a film.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
That was my impression. It was not one of the well-knowns that we would have immediately recognized. But during that registration process, there was a really interesting activity that was planned. And this is something that you could do at any one of your events at any time. They had a piece of paper cut out with a name of every individual who had registered. So as many registrants there were, that's how many slips of paper there were. You were asked to pick out a name at random. And what you had to do at some point throughout the program was to seek this person out and talk to them. And even if you already knew them, the expectation was that you would be able to tell the rest of us about something that you didn't know about this person that they shared with you. And that was the requirement if you wanted to be able to participate in the door prizes or the raffle. And actually, it wasn't the raffle, just the door prizes. So in order to be eligible to receive a door prize, you had to be able to stand up and tell someone about what you had discovered. And they didn't go through everyone. They just picked people at random. And we learned some really interesting things about people as a result.
Yeah. Well, I thought that was very clever. And another thing that was very clever was the way the conference room, the ballroom, was equipped with space for displays. There was a large table with room for not each scion, but 16 or so of the scions had space on the table to have a little display about their organization on paper, photographs, larger displays, and so on. And also another table at the other side of the room where you could bring handouts that people could pick up to learn more about your organization and sign up. And it was great to see that people actively took advantage of both of those spots.
It was. And, you know, that idea of the display of your science history, I think this went hand in hand with a number of other things we talked about throughout the day that grounded us in history. And this is important because I'm a firm believer in understanding the past in order to kind of set the tone for the future. And there are so few resources for us as Sherlockians to find out our collective history. And certainly at the local level, at your local Sherlockian group, it's important to keep track of when you were founded and the events that you did, because that's part of your oral history. It's part of your culture that you're passing down to successive generations. And you want to document that stuff. You want to save it. You want to collect it so that others can look through it.
Yeah, very much so. And particularly as folks age, and in some cases age away from the hobby because they move or illness or whatever, it's important to reach out to those folks and ask if they have anything in their file cabinets about group meetings that need to be preserved in your own organization's archive. The program, I think, was beautifully organized. The event started Saturday at 1:30, and dinner began at 5:30, so it's basically 5 hours. And without, we're not going to go into all the details in the program.
6:30, yeah.
6:30, right?
Yeah.
So it's basically 5 hours, 1:30 to 6:30. And we're not going to go into all the details in the program, but, we did have, the program was very well put together with very appropriate breaks. The talks were focused and presented in short order, and featured some really wonderful, I thought, programming ideas along the lines of the things we've already talked about with the selection of the names. So, for example, there was a roll call of scions, and I think there was something like 80 different scion organizations represented there. So the principal representative of a major scion had a minute to come to the podium and talk a little bit about their history. And I thought that was very clever. We had,
well, to be clear, I don't think it was an hour and a half of roll calls. I think there were 80 scions represented in total, but people's primary scions, I would say there were probably at least 40.
Yeah, I would say 30 or 40
who got up and gave that 1 minute spiel.
Yeah, and I thought that was great. So to have a minute to talk about the history of your organization and what makes you distinctive and where you are and how many times you meet a year and so on, that was great. And also the door prizes were very clever. The whole program was really all about engagement. There was a show and tell opportunity. If you brought anything that had great meaning to you as a Sherlockian, you had an opportunity to come and talk about it. And I thought that was very clever. And also musical interludes. We had two. We had a violinist very effectively playing theme music from the Granada Sherlock Holmes series, and you very effectively talking about Jim Montgomery and leading the organization in the conclave in Aunt Clara, and also Father's Folly, which is Bruce Montgomery's extension of the Aunt Clara era after his father died.
And that was for mature audiences only. That Father's Folly. Because, look, a number of Sherlockian groups have sung Aunt Clara at their events, and we just do it because, well, we've always done it. There's not necessarily a full understanding. Well, how does this relate to Sherlock Holmes? We sing this song. So we were able to get to the bottom of that. Thanks to, not only some wonderful research that you did, Burt, on Jim Montgomery, which will be part of a book whose authors we will be interviewing at some point in the future. Stay tuned for that. But also from a booklet that Bill Raby from right here in Detroit, from the Amateur Mendicant Society, published in 1990 about the entire background of Aunt Clara and its writers, and when Jim Montgomery got a hold of it and how it was introduced to societies, etc. So it was, I think it was time well spent on this tradition that just seems to be baked into who we are at this point. But I do want to make sure that folks get a sense as to the stylings of violinist, Annie Toronto. She performed the Baker Street Suite, or the theme from the Granada television series. And let's just listen to her performance here. Now, the thing you can't see as part of this is she received a standing ovation at the end of that. And I think there were chills throughout the entire audience as she played that. And to hear it done live, it was such a treat.
Yeah. Really was fabulous. Absolutely fabulous.
But, ultimately, this idea, I think one of the highlights of the program for me, even though there were all these scheduled things, was a section, it was sometime in the middle of the day. It was called Open Discussion. And it was a chance for people to just pop up and talk about some of the things that they were thinking of, some of the things that perhaps they were struggling with in participating and in running Sherlockian societies around the Midwest. And I think these issues are not specific to the Midwest by any stretch of the imagination. They're probably not even specific to Sherlockian societies. They could be related to any group that's trying to meet in person these days, or that's trying to attract a younger crowd. And I thought the exchange of ideas and just the statement of a lot of these things was really eye-opening.
Yeah, I agree that it's very clever to have that sort of open mic opportunity. And if one of the nice things is if you go to an event like this and have things on your mind, but maybe not have the self-confidence in your own or ability to articulate your own set of concerns, after a minute or two, you probably tumbled to the fact that you're not alone. And, everybody, talked about things that are very common in conversation among people who operate and participate in local Sherlockian groups, like bringing in new people, like diversity, like more activity, like getting speakers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that was really, really well done.
Yeah. And ultimately, if we didn't solve anything in the room that day for these common themes that were identified, at least you made friends or have contacts now that you can follow up with to continue this discussion and see if you can solve them, in time over the course of the calendar year. So that was really wonderful as well.
Yeah. And so, you could ask yourself, okay, well, so what does it all mean? Well, I think there are a couple of conclusions. One is, happily, I think you can expect this to happen again. There was a lot of enthusiasm towards the end of the day for talking already about what's next? And what happened here, this was supposed to be the Midwest gathering of scions.
Yeah, how did you get in if it was Midwest?
Well, I had to get a post office box in Idaho.
I knew it.
Yeah. And that's why I was wearing my false mustache over my real mustache. But people came from coast to coast for this. So I think you will see this repeated around the country, which is a great thing. And I think it'll definitely have an effect in providing a level of energy around local Sherlockian activity.
That is the hope. This is the inaugural one, and I would expect that there will be a certain structure that's followed in all of the regional ones, because this is part of creating our common bond together, is that we all have similar experiences, and I would expect that in structuring another canonical conclave, it would have a very similar look and feel, and that those localities could get just as much out of it as we did from attending this one. So hats off to Steve Doyle and the planning committee, which was largely made up of people from the illustrious clients of Indianapolis. I know he mentioned people like Shelley Gage and Louise Haskett and Ann Lewis.
Yep.
And I apologize if I'm forgetting any other names.
Mark Walters.
Mark Walters, yeah. His VP there. So yeah, it was definitely something that needs to be done by a team. This is not anything that a single person can pull off. And I think we've seen the same, you and I, Burt, in terms of running the modern Sherlockian organization. At least if it's a larger organization, there's a lot to coordinate. And thinking that any single person can undertake this on his or her own or their own, that's I think you're going to get more done if you experience it and coordinate it with more people.
That's true. Unless the name of your society is the Solitary Cyclist and there's only one member, you need help. And in fact, if the name of your society is the Solitary Cyclist and there is only one member, you may definitely need help.
Yeah. Okay, well, we are back with our correspondent who we saw at the Canonical Conclave. Smiles all around. It's Madeline Quinones. It's a chance of listening with your correspondent, Madeline Quinones.
Hello, everyone. I'm Madeline Quinones, back from 221 Beacon, which was amazing. And I'm here today to talk about a different kind of Sherlockian podcast. Different because it's more Doylean. I am talking, of course, about Doings of Doyle. Mark Jones and Paul Chapman started this podcast in November 2019, the same month as Adler to Amberley, and this was the 6th and last Sherlockian podcast to come out that year. I think the best way to sum up the show is its own regular intro, that the hosts explore Doyle's eclectic bibliography to understand more about the great man's life and work. They discuss his fiction and nonfiction, the well-known and the obscure, and stop by Baker Street along the way. Each episode, dropped once a month, is dedicated to one of Doyle's works, or else Mark and Paul interview someone who's done work in the field of Doyleana. The hosts stick mostly to Doyle's enormous non-Sherlockian bibliography, but they do, on occasion, discuss a story from the canon. One of the things that I think sets this show apart from so many others is just the sheer depth of knowledge that Mark and Paul have about Doyle's writings and his life. Every story gets put into the context of when it was written and the possible influences on it, and what Doyle himself said about the writing of the story. It's incredible! Each episode is thoroughly researched. So for the handful of episodes focusing on a canon story, even if you've read a lot of scholarship, you're pretty much still guaranteed to learn something new. And I want to be clear about something else. In no way is this show dry. You learn a lot, it's true. But Mark and Paul are charming and good-humored, and they always make their show an enjoyable listen. They even regularly run a blooper from the current recording of the show, so it's worth sticking around after the end music to catch the blooper. Of course, this interest in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle himself is very timely, with the rise of the ACD Society and the literary agents, as well as the scholarly journal Steel True Blade Straight. In that way, Doings of Doyle may well be the first Sherlockian-esque podcast in several years to have really tapped into the zeitgeist. So let's talk about highlights. Of course, you could check out the show and dive into a story or a guest interview that intrigues you, and I do recommend trying that. But I will say I really enjoyed the recent 3-parter that they did for The Lost World, the first Professor Challenger story. In terms of a Sherlockian story, there's the October 2023 episode, in which they cover the adventure of the empty house. And in terms of interviews, there's the March 2021 episode with Sherlockian Cliff Goldfarb to talk about Doyle and his fascination with the Napoleonic era. And that's all I've got for today. I'll see all you Doyleans at the next ACD Society Doylean Honors in January. Bye!
Great fun. And just a reminder, if you'd like to hear more about the Doings of Doyle podcast, you can tune into I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, episode 193, where we spoke with the delightful Mark Jones. Burt, I'm afraid I have some breaking news. This is just in as we're recording. Lego has released an exclusive set, an exclusive Lego set with Barnes & Noble, in collaboration with Barnes & Noble. The Sherlock Holmes Book Nook. It is a branded Lego set that is specifically designed for Sherlock Holmes. We will have a link in the show notes to this, but it is absolutely delightful. It is kind of one of these, if you fold it up, it looks like a book, but if you're looking down the opposite of the spine, you're looking into like a little alleyway, and the book opens up, and what you get is the facade of Baker Street. So it's a real wonderful exploration of Sherlock Holmes and by Lego, I should say.
Yes, it's available for pre-order. It will ship apparently from the 1st of June, and it seems to be generously priced.
We'll let you explore the price at whatever locale you are in, but we should just note that it comes with Lego figurines, of course, Dr. Watson, Irene Adler, and Professor Moriarty, and Baker Street newcomer Paige, Paige. It's a young lady. You can slide the book nook in between your favorite novels to create a window into the adventures awaiting on Baker Street, according to the Lego website. And open it up to discover a bookshop with a revolving display window, a shadowy terraced residence with a sliding door, mysteries and clues, and a detailed recreation of 221B, including a cozy fireplace, a clue board, and his beloved violin. Well, what more could you want out of a Lego branded Sherlock Holmes set? Well, I mean, you tell us. Maybe you do want more, but it's a fascinating development, certainly for collectors.
Yeah. Well, it's wonderful. It's very clever, and it's terrific to see our interest, this scene, and this recognition of the atmosphere and the fact that you can create a world, an environment that you can duplicate with these very famous characters. So it's a lovely, lovely thing, and I'm sure that it's going to sell very well.
Well, those tones mean it's time for, once again, the Canonical Couplet, Sherlockian quiz program, where we give you 2 lines of poetry and we ask you to discern which Sherlock Holmes story we are talking about. Do you remember the last time we were around these places, we gave you this clue? The way a cow-like girl was taken in bids us beware of our kith and kin. Oh boy. Burt, do you have any idea what we're talking about?
Moo. Yes. Yeah, sure. That's the case where Sherlock Holmes and Watson are visited in Baker Street by John Hector McFarlane, a homeowner who's been arrested for the murder of a contractor who never showed up. It's the case Watson called The Adventure of the No Good Builder.
Boy, oh boy. Nope.
No?
I know. You're absolutely flummoxed, but
Again.
no, it was not the case. I'm going to turn to our pal, Eric Deckers, once again to the rescue. He says, "Hot dog, I've solved it. It's the story where Holmes has lost his memory after being found with numerous injuries. Watson nurses him back to health, even as Holmes tries to track down Hosmer Angel, who's disappeared. Holmes finally succeeds in unmasking Angel and revealing a larger government conspiracy. It's a story Watson called A Case of the Bourne Identity. Except Holmes looks nothing like Matt Damon, so it's more likely to be a case of identity. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to crack a case of beer." Well done, Eric. Yes, and you were joined by a number of people this time around. It's heartening to hear that we've got so many people that share in your intelligence and interest. So we're going to bring out the prize wheel and give it a spin. Going around and around and landing on number 25. And that looks like it's our pal Max McGee. Max, congratulations. Wonderful to see Max at the Canonical Conclave over the weekend. But I want to read Max's reply in full. And it makes a great deal more sense when you see the photos that are associated with it. Maybe I'll put the photos in the show notes. He said, "This week's quiz question has me thinking gee whiz, as in spreadable, delectable cheese whiz. Obviously, Eric is the creme de la creme when it comes to solving couplets, but I thought I might dip my chip into this one. I believe this is a case of the man who had a crisis of self, proclaiming, 'I am the cheese.' He viewed his life through orange-dusted glasses and believed that he could not be moved, not even by Algernon. Paired with his whiny daughter-in-law, this man was no angel, as she had the cheesecloth pulled over her eyes. Obviously, The story referred to in this week's couplet is Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Acaso Identity. And then he has a picture of himself from the Wisconsin Marathon wearing a cheese hat. You know, like those cheese heads they have for Wisconsin, only it's in the shape of a top hat.
Right.
So, well, Max, I mean, if nothing other than for sheer effort of your cheesy puns, that's a win. So we have something from the iHose vaults to give you this time around. Good Lord, that was really something. I'm glad it wasn't something else. Okay. Well, let's turn to this canonical couplet. We again have something from the iHose vaults, so try your hand at this clue. Dogs don't make mistakes, claimed Sherlock Holmes. That uncovered the ruse, as did some old bones. If you know the answer to this episode's canonical couplet, put it in an email addressed to comment@ihearofsherlock.com with canonical couplet in the subject line. If we choose your answer from random from all of the correct submissions, you'll win. Good luck. Oh ho ho. Do we have a cheese wheel we can give anyone? Do you know?
A cheese wheel, that would be Gouda if we had that.
Jeez.
Actually, it's supposed to be Gouda, is how they pronounce it.
Is it really?
Netherlands. Yeah.
Well, that doesn't make for any good puns.
No.
It's all cheese to me. It's all
Cheese
brie
at
to
the
me.
cops. Yeah.
Goodness. Well, I'm not going to try my hand at any of the cheese puns because we've done enough damage with your canonical couplet answer. So, okay.
I like the queso identity. I thought that was clever.
That is good. I like that.
Yeah.
But that is not your best answer.
Not your best answer.
Sorry. I got to pull up the. There it is.
There it is.
Yeah. Sorry, there's plenty of that to go around. We should keep that trombonist on staff here.
Yes, we should.
Part of our monthly expense here at I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere. Well, we will be back again in a couple of weeks' time with another episode. We'll be back to an interview segment, so stay tuned for that. Who will it be? What will it be about? Well, only our producers know for sure. In the meantime, this is the non-cheesy Scott Monty.
And I'm the completely gluten-free. That means you have to have the gluten on the side when you talk to me. Burt Wolder.
And together, we say, the game's
afoot.